So after I was betrayed, I started off by responding with an incredible amount of pain and anger, which I'm sure most, if not all of you, can relate to. And then over time, all of that started to soften a little bit. And I started to recognize some of the things in my ex husband's past and things that he had been through that I think led to the affair, that led to those decisions. And one of the first thoughts that I had as I started to kind of put these pieces together is, why didn't he talk to me sooner? Why couldn't he open up to me and let me know what was going on? Because if I had known these things earlier, maybe we could have worked together to change that path instead of all of this leading in such destruction. And I bet that that's something that many of you have felt of, why couldn't they open up to me? Why couldn't they talk to me? So what I'm going to share with you today are 5 reasons why maybe they felt like they couldn't talk to us. And the first is that sometimes people keep us in the dark because they feel as though they're doing us a kindness. Now, maybe this is coming out of a protective thing of, I don't want to hurt somebody. This is something that's upsetting, so I don't want to share this with them because it might hurt them. So I'm going to protect them from that pain. Or sometimes it comes from the, like, I'll deal with this myself. I don't want to burden them with this. And both of those kind of, from the perspective of one keeping it in, they can feel like you're doing something noble. Like this is a good thing. I am taking care of my partner. But the reality is that you're acting as a gatekeeper. When you're not sharing things with your partner, you're taking away their agency to make their own choices. It's this kind of infantilizing, that can happen, this power imbalance. But it's also a very common thing. And for those that are not sharing out of this sense of kindness, these weird mental gymnastics can kind of go into it of explaining why this is the right choice, even when it so clearly isn't. And this can even go to the extreme of somebody who's actively cheating on their partner can disassociate their actions from their words. So it's kind of an extreme of what they don't know can't hurt them. They think that as long as they're keeping their partner in the dark, they're doing the kind thing, even though their actions are what are really betraying. Sometimes they don't feel like they can talk to us because we don't feel like a safe place. And this was one of my big realizations in my first marriage, and quite a tough pill to swallow. So speaking from my own personal experience with this, I wasn't a safe place for him for a couple of reasons. One, I had abandonment issues from childhood. And because of that, anything that gave me kind of that sense of rejection or feeling like I might lose him, anything like that, I would overreact. And so, that didn't make for a good environment for him to share things with me, because my reaction would be so extreme and so over the top. And then another way that we can sometimes not be a safe place is if we respond to things with judgment. If our partners are opening us to us about something difficult, maybe even, mistakes that they've made or shame that they're dealing with, and we respond with judgment and we put them down, it doesn't make them want to open up to us. And we don't want to respond that way. A lot of times we think we're being helpful or loving when in reality we're being judgmental and critical. And yet another reason that sometimes they don't talk to us is, well, they're lacking self-awareness. Sometimes they've got all of this stuff going on, but they're not even clued into it. Looking at my ex-husband, there were some childhood traumas that I believe happened. And I can see how all of that played into kind of the path that he ended up on. But I don't know how much of that he was aware of. I think he had done a very good job of kind of shoving all of that down and pretending that it either didn't happen or that he was over it. and, moving on. And if somebody doesn't have self-awareness, well, they're not going to have that conversation with you because they don't even know what they have to say. Another reason that they don't talk to us is out of shame. And looking at my own experience, I'd kind of put my ex-husband on a pedestal. I really saw him as this amazing man. I mean, like almost perfect. And so for him to say anything, to disclose anything that would have challenged how I viewed him, I could see that that would compound sort of his own shame that he was dealing with even more. Because shame, well, it's hard to bring it to the light, isn't it? It tells us that we're unlovable. It tells us that this is so bad, this is so extreme that I can't tell anybody. I need to hide this from everybody. And so if your partner is dealing with shame, especially if you see them as, being somehow, this like great, amazing, non-human, quite frankly, person that can't make mistakes, well, it's going to be really hard for them to open up. And then one last reason that sometimes they feel like they can't talk to us. And this one doesn't apply in every situation, but I've encountered it quite a bit. And that is where they start to engage in kind of this magical thinking and this bargaining, where they've ended up making some choices that have put them on a path that they're not happy with, something that they'd like to change, but they think that they can fix it on their own. And so they keep you in the dark because you don't need to know because, well, I'm going to get this thing fixed and then you'll never have to know and everything's going to be okay and I'll be on the right path again. And so they kind of play these two worlds for a while of keeping you in the dark, meanwhile telling themselves, lying to themselves just as much as you, that they're going to be able to fix things. And well, that rarely happens. So I've used all of these to change how I am in my current marriage. So one, I've made it very, very clear that I can handle difficult news from my partner. And part of that comes down to monitoring my own responses when he tells me something. I have to watch my heart rate. I have to watch my physiological reaction. And then I really have to be careful with what I say, especially in that moment. I need to be careful not to be too reactive because I'm wanting to show him that I'm a safe place. And I also want him to know that I can handle things, that he doesn't need to treat me with kid gloves, that I'm an adult and I can handle the truth. And it's up to me to determine what I'm going to do with that. It's not up to him to determine what I know and what I don't. I've also really worked at accepting mistakes. And what's so crazy about this is it's actually having to learn how to be more accepting of my own mistakes, my own screw-ups, because by doing that, it actually makes me more empathetic towards others and their own humanness. And so really working on that helps me recognize that things aren't so like black and white, that somebody can be a really good person and can still mess something up, and that's okay. We can work with that. So just kind of changing my whole viewpoint, I guess, on mistakes. And then with shame, well, there's not much that you can do directly to help somebody else's shame, but I try to be as non-judgmental as possible. And I also will share things that I am ashamed of. I kind of that, modeling of it's okay, to have those things in ourselves that we don't like. And those voices that we tend to listen to in the dark, it's okay to bring them to light and to share those. So yeah, I still wish that my ex-husband would have talked to me before things escalated to the point that they did. But I can understand why maybe he didn't. And while I can't ever force somebody to talk to me, what I can do is control my side of that conversation to make sure that I am a welcoming presence and a listening ear if and when they're wanting to talk.